On to our top focus in this special edition. Aadhaar data is safe, encrypted, says the Unique Identification Authority of India. But an RTI request has turned up the disturbing revelation that the biometric data of Indian citizens has been shared with US firms. Take a look at this special report.
Only days after the Indian Supreme Court ruled that privacy is a fundamental right, questions have been raised about its plans for making Aadhaar mandatory for citizens. That would be a clear breach of the Supreme Court ruling, as it requires people to share their personal details. It now appears that such details have already been shared by the Unique Identification Authority of India, the custodian of Aadhaar data. According to a media report, UIDAI has shared classified data including fingerprints and iris scans. Also date of birth, addresses and mobile numbers of Indian citizens with foreign firms. UIDAI's contract with these firms allows them to store this data for 7 years. All of these details came to notice after a Bengaluru-based RTI activist Matthew Thomas sought information related to the accessibility of the Aadhaar data. The RTI reply shows that UIDAI's claims are not entirely true. While UIDAI claims that it has not shared unencrypted Aadhaar data with any private entity, the reply to the RTI application clearly states that the UIDAI has given the Aadhaar data access to one of its biometric service providers, L1 Identity Solutions, based in the US. Clause 15.1 of the contract between UIDAI and L1 Identity Solutions Operating says that the firm, by virtue of the contract, may have access to personal data of the purchaser, UID, and or a third party or any resident of India. Clause 3 of the contract, which deals with privacy, says that the biometric service provider could also collect, use, transfer, store and process the data. What is important to note here is that the contract does not define personal data, and it is believed that if the contract does not define personal data, then the definition given by UIDAI as a part of the project would become applicable. And according to UIDAI, personal data includes fingerprints, iris details, name, date of birth, address and mobile number. It may also include bank details such as license number, PAN number and passport number. According to the RTI activist, another interesting clause in the contract is that these foreign firms should create and maintain a biometric template, and all the proprietary templates should be transferred to UIDAI when the contract expires. So if we go by UIDAI's claim that no private entity has access to citizens' data, then what data are they expected to transfer in the event of termination of contract? And if the UIDAI has shared the biometric data with foreign service providers, then why is it not coming out in the open with all the contract details? Of course, it begets the larger question. If all these foreign companies have access to Aadhaar data, how safe is our personal data? Bureau Report, WION.
Now, it's important to highlight that this revelation comes just days after the Supreme Court had categorically upheld right to privacy as a fundamental right. This is a long-raging debate over the right to privacy versus Aadhaar. Now, even though the Aadhaar Scheme Authority claims that no leakage of data has been done, this is an RTI reply that reveals that this is a foreign vendor's contract, which in a way allows for sharing of data, which results in the immediate question of if personal data was shared with these foreign vendors. Classified data including fingerprints, iris scan information, personal details like date of birth, address, phone number. All of this is the UIDAI giving foreign firms access to Aadhaar data, classified data including fingerprints. According to these reports, the UIDAI, which is the custodian of Aadhaar data, has shared classified data including fingerprints and iris scans with these foreign vendors as per the contract. This after an RTI reply has revealed the details of that contract that was signed between the foreign vendors and the UIDAI. Let's now go straight across to Colonel Matthew Thomas. He had filed that RTI and got that response from the authorities on the foreign vendors contract. Also, will highlight for us what that contract really states in that reply. Colonel, appreciate you joining us on the broadcast. Bring our viewers up to speed with what your RTI really was all about and the response that you received.
Thank you. I'm very happy to join this because I have been campaigning against this hoax for a very long time. Basically, contrary to all the, I would say, harsh words, lies being put out constantly that no data is shared, all data is safe, we are talking of data security. Contrary to all that, you find that the entire data is being handed over on a platter to foreign companies, and through them, where of course we do not know, possibly intelligence agencies. Not only that, just data is given, they are permitted under the contract to collect additional data, obviously, use, store, transfer, process, and link to personal data of individuals. And this is the copy. I don't know whether your cameraman can zoom in on that. This one shows 3.1. Right. That's the clause 3.1 of the Annexure B, which gives access to all this.
Colonel, let me ask you this. You're a petitioner as well in the ongoing case. Right to privacy versus Aadhaar is the immediate question that arises. Does Aadhaar and has Aadhaar breached this fundamental right?
An interesting question. I'm wondering, where is the right to privacy when an organ of the government says that they are securing the data and contractually they are handing over the entire data to foreign private companies? And interestingly, this particular company, the founder directors were all former FBI and CIA officers. So where is data privacy at all? The complete, not only the data in the UID database, now that the government is linking it to every other database, like your ration cards, your PAN card, your bank account, your LPG, your scholarships, everything is being linked. So the entire data of the country is accessible to foreign private companies. I don't know what privacy we are talking of.
Also, help our viewers understand whether or not this contract was renewed remains unknown, because just to put this out once again, 2010 to 2012 is when this deal was really struck. Whether or not the contract was extended beyond 2012 remains unknown, because as you pointed out, under Regulation 7, no further details were given to you post that.
Yes. This is the Aadhaar Targeted Deliveries Act, and under Regulation 7 of the Aadhaar Data Security Regulations, the entire UID program is confidential. You cannot ask anything. And ever since this came, I've been asking whether the contract has been renewed, whether there's a cabinet sanction for this contract, whether the cabinet agreed to hand over the data to all these foreign companies. They simply keep giving a bald answer. Under the data security regulations, we can't give you anything.
So, Colonel, what you're telling us is that in terms of information that has possibly been leaked or is under threat, there is also national security related information which comes under the purview then.
Absolutely. In fact, the present law minister is on record, and the present national security advisor is on record saying that this is a huge national security threat. The threat is multidimensional. The first threat is the data being handed over, the database itself, the central database, and through the so-called Aadhaar numbers and biometrics being linked to all other databases of the government. That is one threat. The second threat, in other words, you're putting all your eggs in one basket and handing over the basket to a foreign company. The second aspect of this threat is the way in which the data is gathered itself. You've got all kinds of riffraff agencies collecting this data in 34,000 centers around the country. Again, the law minister is on record saying over 30,000 of them were closed down and new ones started. Several FIRs have been filed. There is no information on what is the investigation level. And lastly, there are a number of illegal immigrants. We do not know how many spies or other terrorists would have got the so-called Aadhaar number. And once they have that, it appears to be a foolproof for entry to airports, to various KYC norms. They can open bank accounts, they can do anything with it. It's absolutely silly. So that the threat is multidimensional. It is also a threat not only to individuals but also to the nation itself.
All right, Colonel, request you to please stay on with us. Now, let's also take our viewers through how it's not just the Aadhaar scheme which raises the pertinent question of whether or not our personal data, our personal information is being infringed upon, whether or not there is a constant threat to our fundamental right to privacy. Be also wary each time you fill in your personal details on a job portal, as your personal information might be under threat. In the latest, the trial court has ordered a probe against online job portal monster.com for allegedly selling data of users to a third party. Important to highlight here, this is the first such case, very close on the heels, just days after the Supreme Court held privacy to be a fundamental right. Chief Metropolitan Magistrate Naresh Kumar Laka said online companies could not share personal information of users to a third party without their informed consent. Remember, the Apex Court had noted that there is an urgent need to restrain online firms from invading the privacy of individuals. CMM Laka added that users agreeing with the job portal's terms of use and privacy policy would not automatically mean that companies are then allowed to share or sell their personal information. Adding that at the time of entering their personal information or data, job seekers are not aware that the said data can be sold to any third person or that it can be misused. The CMM referred to the Supreme Court verdict while directing the police to conduct a probe against the company and nab the culprits responsible for selling the data to an accused who duped thousands of unemployed people. The court added that such fake job rackets are operating across the country and a firm hand is needed to keep them under check. In its defense, the company has said that it informed the police that it had entered into a lawful contract for selling data. It relied on the clause of acceptance of agreement between the job seekers and the portal and said the terms of the agreements amount to the company taking consent of all users for sharing of their data. Let's also bring in Advocate Ramakant Gaur into the discussion. We already do have Colonel Matthew Thomas standing by. Advocate, let me ask you this. This is a huge concern when it comes to thousands of job seekers entering personal information, but now apparently that information is being leaked.
That is right. And this is not happening by one portal or two portals. It is happening all over. The private data uploaded by the applicants or by the concerned persons have been used, misused and abused. This is basically violative not only of the constitutional right, but also this act is considered to be as a criminal act. And accordingly, the Chief Metropolitan Magistrate has issued an order for the investigation by a competent authority, by the competent investigators, and thereafter the investigation report would be submitted before the court and appropriate action against the culprits under the provisions of IPC would be taken.
Colonel Matthew, let me bring you in here, though it might be a speculative question, but do you feel, as Advocate just voiced, that this could be just the tip of the iceberg? There could be a multitude of sites also leaking data in a similar fashion?
And there's no doubt at all. In fact, wherever you go, don't they ask, even a supermarket, they'll ask you for the mobile number. What do they do with that? Immediately you'll find within a few minutes an insurance company calling you. Obviously they have sold it. In fact, I think Mr. Satpathy, the Honorable MP, wrote an article saying the data is the new oil. So everybody is floating in this oil and they're cashing in on this oil. So data is being collected, data is being stored all over the place.
At stake,
in fact, post the privacy judgment. Yeah, absolutely. And there is no informed consent. Has UIDI taken informed consent of people whom they forced to come into it by saying that you will not get your LPG or you will not get your rations? No informed consent. And then they take it and pass it on. In fact, the UIDI has got a program called application development. What application can you develop on a platform which contains just raw data? how will you develop any application?
Totally.
Unless you sell the data. So data, the intention is to sell the data and make money. And everybody across the board is doing that. So post the judgment, I would request the government to come out with a law to have huge penal consequences when they collect data without informed consent and when they sell the data. And even foreign companies like Facebook, Twitter, all these companies are making money on the data and profiling people, not individually, but in terms of patterns of behavior. And it's so foolish on the part of our government to have Facebook pages. Every department has a Facebook page. Every department has a Twitter handle. What for? We are just handing over the data, what's happening in our ministries, to foreign countries and their companies. Every one of these companies have a contract with the National Security Agency of the United States. So first the request to the Prime Minister would be, please stop all government departments from using Facebook or Twitter. Let them have their own channels of communication with the citizens of this country. Why do you need a foreign Facebook page in order for them, Mr. Mark Zuckerberg, to make money?
All right, let's wrap it up on that note. We're completely running out of time on that development. Thanking Advocate Gaur and Colonel Matthew for joining us on that discussion. A host of questions still go unanswered, whether or not our personal data is under threat.